Hello, everyone. I'm Kayla, a 35-year-old who wants to share an event that unfolded in my life, one that I navigated surprisingly well. Unlike many stories you may have heard, mine begins with a rather positive twist concerning my mother-in-law, which might raise a few eyebrows. We shared a harmonious relationship built on kindness, understanding, and mutual respect. My husband, Gary, is my soulmate, my partner in every adventure, and my closest confidant. From my perspective, everything was perfect. It's worth noting that I wasn't blind to potential issues. Like any family, we had our disagreements, but nothing hinted at the chaos that was about to unfold. The surprise and confusion I felt when everything changed are difficult to express. I'm still trying to process what happened and why I felt driven to seek revenge on both Gary and my mother-in-law. Here's the backstory. I had planned a special family vacation, initially just a getaway for Gary and me. But then I thought of Janice, my mother-in-law, who had been widowed for 3 years. Imagining her loneliness, I decided to extend the invitation to her, hoping to make the trip unforgettable for all of us. The plan was to explore Italy, immersing ourselves in the rich culture of Naples, enjoying delicious meals, and soaking up the sun along the Mediterranean. I was thrilled at the prospect of creating beautiful memories and deepening our bond. I took care of all the major arrangements, covering the costs of our accommodations, meals, and activities, while Gary and Janice could contribute to any extras if they wished. My vision was to give us a once-in-a-lifetime experience in Italy, from staying in a charming boutique hotel with breathtaking views to attending a vibrant flamenco dance show. The excitement among us was palpable, and I was bubbling over with joy at the surprise I had planned for Janice and Gary. Little did I know that the events about to unfold would challenge my unwavering trust and shatter the seemingly flawless harmony of our family life. I was on the brink of an experience that would dramatically shift my perspective on family loyalty and expose the startling complexities of deceit. But let's not get ahead of ourselves. Let me take you back to a moment filled with anticipation and dreams of our trip to Italy, a time when our aspirations brimmed with potential and optimism. There I was in our living room, holding the plane tickets with a radiant smile, calling Gary and Janice over. Their puzzled expressions were a mix of curiosity and surprise. Janice, with her perceptive eyes that seemed to carry the wisdom of ages, looked on with interest. "What's this all about, Kayla?" she asked, a hint of excitement in her voice. With a grand flourish, I presented the plane tickets and excitedly outlined our splendid Italian vacation. I had meticulously planned every detail of our trip, eagerly watching their faces for a glimpse of the joy and appreciation I felt. Gary's reaction was immediate. His face lit up, eyes sparkling with excitement. "Kayla, you're amazing. This trip sounds incredible," he exclaimed. Janice's response was more subdued but equally heartfelt. "Oh, Kayla, you've gone above and beyond. This is such a generous gift," she said, her warmth enveloping me. In that moment, I was filled with pride and happiness. Their reactions confirmed the love and thought I had poured into planning this surprise. I truly believed this vacation would strengthen our bonds even further, creating memories that would last a lifetime and fortifying connections that already felt indestructible. However, as you may have guessed, our story was about to take a dark turn. Beneath the surface of our seemingly perfect relationships lay a complex web of deceit and betrayal poised to ensnare us. The unraveling truth would test the boundaries of forgiveness and challenge our understanding of what it meant to be a family. As we embarked on our journey and boarded the plane to Italy, the air was thick with anticipation. We were set to dive into the vibrant life of its streets, blissfully unaware of the challenges that lay ahead. The first week of our trip unfolded like a dream. We indulged in the rich flavors of the region, roamed through historical sites, and let the lively flamenco beats guide our steps into the night. Laughter and a shared sense of joy seemed to affirm that nothing could sever the strong bond we shared. Yet, unbeknownst to me, a tempest was gathering strength, ready to strike and unravel the fabric of my happiness. It was a bright Monday morning, the sun casting a golden glow over the city. I found myself alone in what should have been a room filled with family. Confusion and a sinking sense of unease enveloped me as I reached for my phone, desperately trying to contact Gary and Janice, only to be met with silence. Their sudden disappearance left me grappling with a whirlwind of emotions and questions. The phones offered no answers, and a thorough search of our room revealed no clues. No goodbye notes, no packed bags, nothing to suggest a planned departure or any hint of trouble. It felt as if I had imagined our shared moments of happiness. Now, sitting alone in a space meant for family, time stretched painfully as I wrestled with unsettling possibilities. Had they somehow gotten lost, or worse, been taken? The absence of any signs of a struggle or distress quickly dismissed those fears, leaving me with the cold realization that I had been abandoned in a foreign country. The bonds I thought were unbreakable now seemed to have dissolved. Just as despair began to cloud my thoughts, a ray of hope pierced the gloom, a call from Janice. A mix of emotions overwhelmed me. Relief at knowing they were at least safe, confusion over their unexplained departure, and a deep sense of betrayal. With a heart heavy with conflicting feelings, I answered, my voice betraying my worry and incredulity. Janice, where are you? What's going on? I asked, hoping for some understanding, some reason that could make sense of this situation. However, the response I received was far from the warm, comforting tone I was used to from Janice. Her voice, edged with a hint of coldness and frustration, was almost unrecognizable. Kayla, I thought I should at least return your call since you've tried reaching me so many times, she said, her words striking a chill through me. The affectionate, kind-hearted Janice I knew seemed distant, replaced by someone whose actions I couldn't reconcile with the love and respect we once shared. I'm sorry if I bothered you, I replied, my voice filled with genuine concern. I just couldn't find you or your things and started to worry something bad might have happened. Her next words hit me like a physical blow, carrying a chilling indifference. We left you. Confused and hurt, I pressed for an explanation. But why? What did I do? I couldn't stand another week with you, so we had to leave, she said bluntly. Stunned, I struggled to process the weight of her words. I asked, what do you mean? Did I do something to upset you? Yes, how can you not see it? Janice snapped. You just decided we were going on this trip, assuming I'd be okay with spending so much time together. I can handle a few hours at family gatherings, but 3 weeks? I couldn't pretend any longer. After just 1 week, I was at my limit. Her words carried a harshness I had never encountered before, leaving me stunned. I'm sorry, but Gary and I are headed to the airport now. We just can't be around you any longer, she added, her announcement sending shockwaves through me. This revelation challenged everything I thought I knew about our relationship. How could our seemingly strong bond dissolve so quickly? I was left questioning what I had done to provoke such a reaction and whether there was any way to mend the rift between us. Feeling a mix of confusion and sorrow, I tried to express my unawareness of her feelings. Janice, I honestly had no idea you felt this way. You wouldn't have known. I led you to believe everything was fine, she replied, her tone icy. But why didn't you talk to me about this earlier? We could have worked through whatever issues you had with me, I insisted, still trying to understand the root of the problem. That's just it. I can't specifically say what it is about you that bothers me. You just do, she admitted, sounding almost childish in her inability to articulate her discomfort. I was astounded. That's incredibly vague. Are you upset with me over some vague annoyance? That seems so petty. I thought there was a genuine issue at stake. Our conversation left me in disbelief. Not only was our relationship not as solid as I believed, but the reasons for its breakdown were maddeningly unclear. This unexpected twist in our family dynamics forced me to confront a painful truth. Sometimes the foundations we build upon are more fragile than we ever imagined. I didn't do anything wrong, did I? I asked, seeking some sort of justification for this bewildering situation. Janice's response was dismissive. It's not about right or wrong. It's how I feel about being around you. You annoy me, and I can't stand it. Confused and hurt, I questioned her decision to join us on the trip. If you felt this way, why agree to come to Italy with us? It was a free trip to Italy. Who would say no to that? She replied bluntly. But as time went on, I just couldn't deal with you anymore. What did I do that bothered you so much? I pressed, desperate for answers as her vague complaints left me reeling. Janice struggled to pinpoint anything specific, leaving me more frustrated and heartbroken. It was becoming clear that this sudden disdain had no solid foundation. Amidst my shock and sadness, I needed to hear Gary's perspective. Can I talk to Gary? A mix of hope and dread colored my voice as I asked, can I talk to Gary? Janice handed him the phone without hesitation, and Gary's tone mirrored his mother's indifference. Hello, he said, as if oblivious to the gravity of the situation. Gary, you're leaving me too. My voice cracked, the sting of betrayal hitting hard. I'm leaving because my mom said she needed to go home, not because I don't like you, he tried to explain, but his reassurance fell flat. How long have you known about your mom's feelings toward me? I pressed, searching for some understanding. Gary admitted that he had been aware for a while but had hoped the trip would bridge the gap between us. His admission only deepened my confusion. Why didn't anyone talk to me about this before? We're adults. We solve our problems through discussion. But just like his mother, Gary had no real answers. The silence that followed my speculation about Janice's jealousy confirmed my suspicions. I concluded that the issue wasn't truly about me but rather rooted in Janice's insecurities and envy. After ending the call, I paced my hotel room, bewildered and hurt but also enlightened. Decades of life experience reminded me that sometimes people's issues with you stem more from their internal struggles than from anything you've done. Jealousy, insecurity, and unresolved personal problems can drive people to irrational dislike or resentment. It was a hard lesson in human nature, one that would take time to fully digest. I never would have guessed that the ones to push me to my limit would be my own family. The sting of betrayal from those closest to me was something I never saw coming. After a moment of deep sadness, a spark of realization hit me. It was time for me to stand up for myself and take charge of my situation. This was the turning point, a moment that would mark a new chapter in my life. As I dried my tears, a fierce resolve took hold. I would no longer let their cruel actions consume my emotions. It was time for them to understand that they couldn't just walk all over me without consequences. With my hands still shaking, I called Peter, a lifelong friend who had stood by me through every high and low. I confided in Peter about the entire ordeal in Italy, and without hesitation, he offered his unwavering support. Kayla, you've always been unstoppable. Tell me what you need, and I'll be there, he said, his voice a comforting blend of concern and eagerness to help. An idea sparked in my mind, both cunning and poetic. Peter, does your construction company still deal with that annoying excess sawdust? Yeah, it's a constant bother, he replied, puzzled yet intrigued. I have the perfect solution for it, I said, revealing my plan to use the sawdust as a symbol of the mess they'd made of our relationship. My idea was to fill Janice's house with it, touching every corner as a reminder of the turmoil she had caused. Peter, always the adventurous spirit, was immediately on board, amused and impressed by the creativity of the plan. Together, we plotted how to carry out this unique form of justice. But how will we get inside before they return? He wondered. There's a spare key under the potted plant on the patio. That's our entry point, I explained, having thought through every detail. You've thought of everything. I'd underestimated you, he chuckled, admiration in his voice. Determined to reclaim my power and no longer be overlooked, I embraced this new resolve as the plan unfolded. Peter confirmed the execution, and I waited eagerly for the inevitable fallout. This wasn't just about revenge. It was a statement that I was not someone to be dismissed lightly. Then, as if on cue, my phone signaled a new message from Peter. The deed is done, he wrote. Now, it was just a matter of time before they discovered the extent of my response. This wasn't merely a prank. It was a lesson in respect and a reminder of the consequences of underestimating someone's resolve. I could hardly contain my excitement as I opened the pictures Peter had sent. The sight was unbelievable. Janice's immaculate home was now chaos, completely submerged under a blanket of sawdust. It looked as if a sandstorm had swept through, leaving our mark of mischief in every corner. I couldn't help but laugh as I spoke with Peter over the phone. I experienced a moment of joyous release from the betrayal that had weighed so heavily on me. It was a strange kind of triumph, sharing this victory with Peter, a friend who stood by me through such an unconventional response to hurt. There's a certain satisfaction in being a little naughty, he remarked, and I couldn't agree more. As time passed, my anticipation grew for Gary and Janice's reaction. I imagined their shock and confusion upon returning to a home transformed by our handiwork. Eventually, Gary called, his voice laced with shock and a hint of panic as he described their astonishment at the sawdust-filled house. Listening to him, I couldn't help but feel a twisted sense of satisfaction. My heart swelled with the knowledge that my message had been delivered. Actions have consequences, I thought, savoring the moment. Kayla, this is terrible. Mom's beside herself, Gary lamented. Without hesitation, I admitted my role in their unexpected welcome home. Well, how could you just abandon me like that? I retorted. Was this you? Gary's confusion was palpable. Then Janice's voice cut in, demanding the phone from Gary before accusing me directly. Despite their attempts to pin the blame on me, I coolly deflected. Maybe it's time you consider security measures for your home, I suggested, the irony not lost on me. Janice's complaints about the inconvenience and discomfort caused by the sawdust only reinforced my point about their choice to leave me stranded in Italy. Amidst the chaos, I felt a surge of empowerment. I had sent a clear message. I was not someone to be underestimated or discarded without thought. The fallout from our orchestrated chaos served as a reminder of the strength I had reclaimed by standing up for myself. The question of when I would return from my vacation lingered in my mind. I had originally planned to stay for 3 weeks, but now I toyed with the idea of extending my trip a bit longer. During a phone call, as Janice lamented the state of her home, Gary couldn't hide his dismay. "Kayla, this is terrible. How could you?" he implored. I couldn't resist playing innocent. "Why would you think I'm involved? I'm just here enjoying the jacuzzi. How could I possibly orchestrate such a thing?" Holding back my laughter was a challenge as they fumbled over their suspicions, unable to pin anything concrete on me. The thrill of seeing them so bewildered was undeniable. As I ended the call with Gary, a wave of satisfaction washed over me. I had flipped the script, forcing them to confront the consequences of their own actions. What I had done might have been extreme, especially considering Janice's age and the potential health risks posed by a sawdust-filled house. But I was certain they wouldn't dare stay there, opting instead for a prolonged hotel stay. Meanwhile, I extended my vacation, savoring the Italian culture and the freedom I had reclaimed. Back home, Gary and Janice faced the daunting challenge of cleaning up the colossal mess, a task that seemed almost Herculean. The thought of Janice moving in with us, given her aversion to my company, was an ironic twist I found amusing. This situation highlighted a harsh truth. Sometimes, people only understand the impact of their actions when faced with direct consequences. The entire ordeal served as a poignant reminder that the only way to teach someone a lesson is often by letting them experience the repercussions of their actions firsthand. So if you ever find yourself in a position to serve justice in your own unique way, perhaps it's not such a bad idea to seize the opportunity. After all, it gives those who have wronged you something tangible to ponder over.
Poor people will rub off on you so they don't even sanitize. Some carry antiseptic for gargling because it's the dry season. It's unclear if Wendy, my mother-in-law, carries it for that reason or with another purpose, but it's obvious there's malice in her actions. "Mom, let's go home." "Okay, I understand. Let's go home." On the way home, Mary says something shocking. "Soon your company's going to go bankrupt." The air felt like it froze, as if Mary's anger was burning through the cold. "My name is Sasha James. I just turned 55 this year. I don't have a husband. My daughter Mary was born 25 years ago. The day she was born, I lost the love of my life. My husband ran a company and was always busy. Still, he loved me and proposed even though I was unsure about being a CEO's wife. I thought we could make it work, but fate was cruel. After hearing about Mary's birth, my husband rushed to the hospital, but he died on the way. He had just undergone heart bypass surgery weeks earlier. It seemed successful, but he never made it back. The delivery room, filled with joy, suddenly felt like a funeral, despite everything I had to go on. To raise my child alone, which was an exhausting journey. Mary was once reprimanded by her preschool teacher for being mean to a friend. I scolded her harshly, Mary tried to explain, but she ended up crying. Every day was tough, but slowly Mary started to communicate better. She matured. Being a single mother was hard. I faced prejudice. But Mary and I made many memories together. Mary graduated college safely. She recently turned 25. "Happy birthday, Mary. I made you this cake." "Wow, Mom, you made this? It's amazing. Thank you." This might be our last birthday celebration, just the two of us. Next year, we'll celebrate with everyone together. I glanced at the engagement ring on Mary's finger. Mary had returned home the other day, smiling as she showed off the silver ring. David had proposed. Seeing her smile reminded me of my own engagement day. Mary and David had been together since high school, almost 10 years. They faced some tough times, but they're now close to reaching their goal. As I stared at the candle on the cake, I muttered to myself, "It'll be lonely when she leaves after 25 years. Tears unexpectedly rolled down my cheeks. "Mom, thank you for everything. Even after I get married, I'll always be your daughter." I couldn't send my husband off with a smile, but I want to send Mary off with joy. After some time, David came to our house. He formally asked for Mary's hand in marriage.
"Sasha, Thank you for watching over us for 10 years. I promise to make Mary happy. Please let me marry her.
Oh, what should I do? Mom, stop teasing us. We all laughed. Despite earlier sadness about Mary leaving, seeing them together, I knew her happiness lay with David. David often visited us. We even went on trips together. His formal request felt almost unnecessary. I trust David with Mary. I'm sure my late husband would approve. Mary has always been bad at expressing her feelings. Please don't shut her down when she's wrong. Talk things through calmly first. But if it's something like cheating, bring her to me right away. Mom! Laughter echoed again. I realized then that Mary's happiness was with David, standing by his side. David, a responsible man, wanted to do things properly. Even though he's already close to her family, if Mary is with David, even my late husband wouldn't complain. Mary has always struggled with expressing her emotions. Please, be patient with her, David. I know things may be hard at times, but talk things through before deciding on anything big. Oh, Mom! Laughter echoed again. I realized how deeply David cared for Mary. Despite everything, Mary's future happiness with David was all that mattered. David's mother, Wendy, was running her own company, which kept postponing the family meeting. Mom, it's just hard to find a time for her since she's the CEO. Oh, I understand. After several cancellations, Wendy finally set a date for the family meeting. Next month's last Saturday is open, so let's make sure it happens. Don't cancel on us again. It's a time we managed to open up. Her tone was sharp. It left me uneasy. On the day of the meeting, I dressed up in formal clothes, thinking Wendy might make remarks about casual attire. Mom, there's no need to dress so formally for this. I just have a feeling Wendy would criticize me for anything less. We arrived at the restaurant early, waiting for David and Wendy. When they arrived, I was struck by Wendy's aura, polished and intimidating. I'm Wendy, David's mother. Nice to meet you. Wendy's demeanor was sharp, her movements graceful, but her gaze cut like a knife. She sighed slightly and led the way inside without another word.
Sorry about my mom. She's always been like that. Even I've always found her difficult.
It's okay, David. I always thought she seemed like someone from a different world, like nobility. David's face clouded for a moment when I mentioned nobility. Mom's already inside. Let's go. The air felt heavy. But I followed Mary into the private room. Wendy was already seated in the place of honor, her posture perfect. It felt like she was making a statement. David, sit here. Mary, there. And you, sit by the door. I felt like she was subtly telling me that I was of the lowest rank. I've heard you have back problems. You'll need to be near the door in case you need the restroom. You might even need a wheelchair. Thank you for the consideration. But wouldn't it be better for you to sit by the door too? You might need it more. Wendy's face hardened as I spoke. Clearly unused to being spoken to like that. No need to worry about me. Thank you for your concern. Wendy's smile didn't reach her eyes. The meal began in awkward silence. Didn't your parents teach you the proper order to eat food? You start with a soup, then bread, then the main dish, and finally the side dishes. It's common sense and part of good manners. Wendy smugly explained this strange etiquette. The reason we start with soup is to stimulate digestion. David smiled awkwardly. He was probably raised with this strict instruction, but that's not how I raised Mary. I didn't teach her such nitpicky rules. Just the basics. Don't walk around during meals. Don't chew loudly. Wendy's detailed etiquette was more suited for formal occasions, not everyday life. Mary had reached for the main dish first, which seemed to upset Wendy. What Wendy is saying is correct, but isn't the heart of manners about consideration for others? Shouldn't good manners be about respecting the other person? Criticizing others for lacking manners is, in itself, poor manners. Wendy's face flushed with anger, and she quietly fumed. Talking to someone so uncultured is exhausting. David, you should reconsider this marriage. Mary's mother is too crude for our family. Or Mary, maybe you should cut ties with this woman and learn proper manners to be our daughter-in-law. Wendy rambled, saying whatever she pleased, ignoring David's pleas for her to stop. Please don't speak that way about my mom. You may be David's mother, but I can't allow you to insult her. Suddenly, Wendy pulled something from her bag and dumped a liquid over my head. Poor people rub off on you, so you need to be sanitized. The smell of alcohol stung my nose. I couldn't tell if she always carried this for such moments, but it was filled with malice. Mom, let's go. Yes, let's go home. David stood frozen in shock at his mother's actions. Mary took my hand and glared at Wendy, but Wendy just smirked.
I'm sorry.
David, don't apologize. We are from a higher class than these two. Soon your company will go bankrupt. Wendy stared in disbelief as the coldness of Mary's words filled the room. What are you talking about? Mary didn't say anything more. She wiped the liquid from my clothes and walked out. We never returned to face Wendy again. Days later, David showed up at our house looking pale and exhausted.
I should have apologized sooner, but I've been trying to convince my mother. She refuses to admit she's wrong, so I came to apologize on my own. His voice was thin and weak, showing how much stress he was under. Though David wasn't my son, he felt like family after 10 years. It hurt to see him struggling so much. Come inside, David. Let's have some tea. You've been through a lot. Are you okay? Though it wasn't my place to ask, I sensed he had a lot on his mind. To be honest, I've always hated my mom. She's always demanded that I repay her for raising me and has pressured me with her expectations. I could imagine the situation all too well. I've always been told I was the heir, and I had to follow the family's expectations. I rebelled once, during high school, when she wanted me to attend a prestigious private school. Instead, I chose to attend a public school with a baseball team where I met Mary. Mary was the team manager and I fell in love with her. No matter what my mother says, I want to marry Mary. Please, let me marry her. David trembled as he knelt on the floor. David, look up. It's not about me, it's about you and Mary. I've seen how much you care for her over these 10 years. I trust you with her happiness. David slowly lifted his head, tears streaming down his face. He must have been terrified that his mother's actions would ruin everything, but his tears showed how deeply he cared for Mary. David, if you truly want to make Mary happy, you need to break free from your past. I understand. It's about my mother, right? I nodded silently. I'm tired of living in fear of her. My father, who's still in the hospital, was the only one who ever understood me. He said that as the heir, my mother could never understand what I was going through. For my father's sake, I've made up my mind. I'll support you and Mary, but it's up to you to take the next step. I understand. I'll do it. The time finally came. Wendy arrived at the restaurant looking displeased. What is this cheap place? We were at a family restaurant, which Wendy had probably never been to. She looked confused as she scanned the restaurant. These are the papers for the adoption. Adoption? Yes, David is officially joining our family. This is outrageous. He's my only son. How dare you try to take him from me? Wendy stood up in anger, slamming the table. This marriage is a joke. Mary isn't worthy of David. We are of a different class. We help people like you, not the other way around. Wendy ranted on, but I remained calm. Why are you so obsessed with social status? I work with many wealthy clients, but those truly born into wealth don't act like you. Only those who recently gained wealth are as insecure as you. Wendy began to tremble. Don't compare me to those people. I was born into wealth. Your actions say otherwise. What are you so afraid of? Wendy froze at the word afraid. David told me you were always told you weren't good enough because you were a girl. So what? I was born a girl in a family where only men mattered. I had to marry a man older than me just to maintain my family status. The truth was finally coming out. Wendy's bitterness was on full display. That's why you're obsessed with David being the heir. But if David marries Mary, your family's perfect lineage will be mixed with a commoner. Shut up! You don't know anything. Enough! Wendy turned pale as David's father, Brian, entered the room in a wheelchair. This is what your father wanted, Wendy. Wendy's face turned pale as she saw David pushing his father in a wheelchair. Though still recovering, he had received special permission to leave the hospital for a short while. He had been listening to everything Wendy said about him. No, you misunderstood. I never thought marrying you was humiliating. I was just... Wendy fumbled for words, unable to come up with an excuse. Brian sighed, shaking his head. Dad says he's divorcing you, Mom. Divorce? No, please say something.
But Brian remained silent, refusing to even look at her. Wendy was in a panic, realizing that this wasn't the end of her troubles. Sorry to interrupt, but we finalized all the necessary paperwork. Wendy jumped at Mary's voice, clearly nervous about what was coming next. Oh, and by the way, I own a significant amount of stock in your company. What? That's impossible. Actually, it's true. I've held a substantial amount of shares in your company for quite some time. Wendy's expression changed from confusion to realization as she connected the dots. Wait, were you that anonymous investor? That's right. But how? How could a poor family like yours invest that much? Wendy was clearly in disbelief, her mind struggling to process the truth. I've been running my late husband's company ever since he passed away, and Mary has helped manage it. We decided to sell all the shares we hold in your company. Wendy's face paled even further. No! Please don't do that! If you sell now, the company will collapse under its debt.
And after you're out of the picture, I'll buy back the shares. You've been embezzling money from the company, haven't you, Mom?
No! That's not true. I was just borrowing a little. I plan to pay it back. Even if the company belongs to you, you can't just use this money for personal reasons. You could face criminal charges for embezzlement, even if you're the sole owner. Wendy was at a loss for words, unable to defend herself.
I've looked into everything, Mom. You've been dealing with some shady loan sharks, haven't you?
I didn't have a choice. I'll pay them back. Just don't sell the shares.
It's too late for that.
Wendy was desperate, pleading for mercy, but David remained firm.
From now on, you're no longer the head of the company.
Please, don't do this. I'll lose everything. Wendy's world was crumbling, and she knew it. Without the company, she would have no status, no wealth, and no influence. Please, David, don't abandon me.
It's too late, Mom. You've always seen me as a tool, not as your son.
No, that's not true. I love you, David.
If that's true, tell me what my favorite food is.
Wendy fell silent, unable to answer.
See? You don't even know. I'm just a tool to you. Now you'll have to fend for yourself.
After David cut ties with her, Wendy's life spiraled out of control. She was shunned by her parents and left to deal with the consequences of her actions. David took over the company and quickly removed Wendy from her position, appointing a new CEO. Wendy was sued for embezzlement and faced both criminal and civil charges. In the end, she fled town to escape her debts and legal troubles. Occasionally, David would receive desperate emails from her asking for help, but he never responded. Eventually, Wendy was arrested for theft. She was sent to prison, where she would serve her sentence. No one visited her in prison, not even her own family. Meanwhile, David and Mary quietly enjoyed their newlywed life. They held a small private wedding with just close family. One day, Mary invited me to a baseball game just like old times. On the way home, Mary handed me a black and white photo. Mom, you're going to be a grandmother. I haven't told David yet. I wanted to tell you first. Tears filled my eyes as I looked at the picture. I'm so happy we could go to the game together. Just the two of us. Next time, let's go with the whole family. I nodded, tears streaming down my face. From a distance, I watched my daughter, her husband, and my newborn grandchild. What seemed like an ordinary day was, for us, a moment filled with joy and meaning.